Welcome to Seeing Death Clearly. The conversations I have with my guests will challenge you to think about your beliefs about death, dying, and grief. The more you think about your beliefs around these topics, the healthier your relationship with death will become, and the more you will live a better life. I'm your host, Jill McClennen, a death doula and end-of-life coach. In today's episode, I'm talking with Lauren Fonseca. Lauren and I actually know each other from my past life. I was trying to remember, did we make your wedding cake first? And then you became customers, or were you customers of the bakery and then we made your wedding cake? I can't remember.
We were customers and then you made our cake.
Oh, long time ago now.
We've been married 10 years.
I'm so happy you're on the show today. I'm excited to talk to you. I know we talked a little bit earlier about the main story you want to share with us, but I want to start off. Can you just tell us a little bit about how old you are, where you came from originally, maybe some of your spiritual beliefs growing up, just so the listeners can get some background info?
Sure. I am 41 today, which is kind of funny. I grew up in Southern New Jersey. I have lived here all of my life. I was raised in a Catholic household. My mother was raised Episcopalian, but later converted to Catholicism for my dad. I was pretty active in my church for a while, and I always thought about death as just a next part of being. But then as I got older, I started thinking about things in a different way. I'm not agnostic or an atheist. I go back and forth between the two. I think about death in a similar way. It's this idea that whatever is in the universe has always been here and always will be. I'll just be in a different form, right? Like you die and then you break down and become food for something else. Everything is here and always has been and always will be, just in a different form. I find that pretty comforting because I didn't mind not being alive before I was born. I'm probably not going to mind not being alive after I'm dead.
Yeah. I've thought about that before too, how there are some spiritual beliefs that say we were in bodies before and then we died and then we came here, but I don't remember it anyway. And I'm kind of glad I don't remember it if that is the truth. Imagine how overwhelming that would be if we did have 5 or 6 lives before this and we remembered all of the stuff that happened. That would be a whole lot to process in my brain.
I can barely process what I've gone through in this life.
Sometimes people say, I want to do past life regressions. I want to know all this stuff. No, I don't. I really don't want to know. There is enough in this lifetime that I'm having a hard enough time working through and putting it into different places so that it's not coming out and being projected onto the people around me. I don't need to know every bad thing that's ever happened to me. It would be kind of nice maybe to know some of the good stuff, but I don't think you could have good without the bad.
No, it doesn't. You have to have the opposite for it to even be. And I think there's a lot more good than bad. And that's why we notice the bad so much.
Yeah, I think that's a nice way of looking at it because I've tried to figure that out in my head, why sometimes humans in general, we seem to focus so much on the negative experiences in our lives. For example, with the bakery, I would get a bunch of really great compliments, but I'd get one negative thing and it would stick in my head and I would think about it. It's very frustrating because we often waste so much time thinking about negative things and stressing about negative things when we could really just be experiencing the beautiful parts of life. And you still have to experience the negative, but I don't think we have to focus so much on the negative. I think we could put more effort in focusing on the positive. And that's really something that facing my fears around death and dying has done for me. It's made me more grateful for the time that I had here. I'm more patient with my family. If one of my kids or my husband's getting on my nerves, part of me is able to meet that situation a little bit differently because I know that there's people that their children are not here and their husbands are not here. And one day that could be me. There's really no way of knowing. And so even if my daughter's screaming and yelling at me, which she tends to do, I try to embrace it a little bit differently. It's not even a conscious effort anymore. I think just working through some of my stuff has allowed that to naturally be a byproduct where I focus more on the positive than I used to in the past.
Well, you can't really beat that. And your daughter's going to grow up and probably stop yelling at you. Maybe.
May or she may not. And
May
I
not.
change her, and that's okay too.
Yep.
So, why don't you tell me about the first experience that you had with death or the dying process, whenever that was, whether you were a child or an adult?
When I was young, like probably 10 or 12, my cousin died. She was probably 10 years older than me and had cystic fibrosis. My sister also has cystic fibrosis. So seeing a person that has the same condition that my sister had die at 21, 22 was really one of those moments that made me realize this was a real possibility rather than an abstract idea. It was a weird thing to process. I don't think I went to the funeral. I don't really remember that at all, but it's like, okay, so this is what can happen. And so that just kind of, and then I tucked it somewhere and didn't really think about it much after that. And my grandfather died while I was 16. My grandfather was old. So it was like, all right, you're in your 80s. That's pretty good. But my cousin at 22 was, ooh, young people die, and that's weird. I tucked it away and didn't really think too much about it until my sister was dying. Was 25 when she died, and that was actually borrowed time for her. And I was 27, so we were close in age, and she was such a model for how to face death. I was at the time a little bit estranged from my mother. We talked, but I was angry with her for a lot of reasons. And I was dating somebody that she did not like and made that very clear to me and to him. That bothered me. Turned out she was right, but that's another story. That's a different podcast. My sister made a decision at 25 that she was tired and was ready to be done. She basically made her own funeral arrangements at 25. It was really a fascinating thing to be a part of. She basically held court 24/7 at my parents' house. People were coming and going all the time. She just needed to tell people what they needed to hear from her. She told me, I have to sing at her funeral. Thanks. Here's what I want you to sing and who I want you to sing with. Okay, I'll handle that, which I did. So that was good. Then she told me, no matter what, I'm going to be with you all the time. And you have to take care of our mother. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. She's like, when I go, she's not going to have anybody and she's going to need you. And I'm like, I can't promise anything. And she's like, except you will. So that's just how it's going to be. She also said something to the effect that I deserved someone who treated me the way that my dad treated my mother. And I had to sit with me for a while. And it was just this really beautiful thing to watch her tithe everything up. She wanted to make sure she died in the hospital so my parents wouldn't have to walk by her bedroom and see that's where she died. These are all the things she was thinking about. This is late February, and we took her back to the hospital. I pretty much just ditched work. I don't even know if I told anybody. I'm like, my sister's dying. I'm leaving. I'm going on leave. I'm just going to take family leave and you'll get the paperwork when you get the paperwork. I went up to, she was a Children's Hospital, Philadelphia. And so I went up there. I spent the night and was with her when she died. That was so important. My parents were there. I was there. These two nurses that had been her nurses since they became nurses, kind of thing. And I'm still friendly with one of them. My dad told her it was okay. The last thing she said to my father was, Dad, you have to talk to Michelle about my foundation. And he said, I've got it. She said, okay. So we actually started a foundation in her memory for kids with CF and their families. For those who don't know, CF can put your kid in the hospital more than they're not. It's gotten better. The treatments have gotten better. But my sister was in the hospital 2 weeks at a time, fairly often. You get to know the people at the hospital and you get to see the struggles that other people have. When she was young, it was 6 patients to a room. Now it's 1. And I think that's awful. When you're a kid, you need company. And this was before HIPAA and MRSA and all of that kind of stuff. So it was 6 people to a room. It didn't matter what gender you were just in there. And then you could talk to other kids that had CFT. It's like, oh, I had to get a portacath in. Don't worry about it. It's actually really easy and it's way better than a long line. It's like, oh, okay, you have to get this particular feeding tube. Don't worry about it. This is what it's going to look like. And here's how I deal with all the gross. It's these children helping each other get through things that they're all going through at the same time. I understand why they can't have 6 patients to a room, but I feel bad for the kids who are up there isolated from other kids that are going through the same thing. So my sister wanted to make sure that these kids had access to each other in some way, make sure that the parents were taken care of. We paid for gas gift cards. We paid for hotel rooms. We paid somebody's electric bill. We covered someone's funeral expenses, all of that kind of stuff. That was so important to her. And that kept her memory alive. It was a really good way to honor her and keep her with us in that way. We were all with her when she died, and we all knew exactly what she wanted. That was brilliant. Like, we all knew she wanted to wear this sweater with these pants. I want to wear my pearl earrings. I want this and that, like all of this. She had everything already planned out. She wanted people to eulogize her a lot. She's like, I just want anyone who wants to talk to come up. I want you to have 3 viewings because people work. So you have one in the day, and then you have one in the evening, and then you have one in the morning before the funeral. She wanted a luncheon afterward. She's like, y'all got to get together. This is BS. No luncheon. You got to feed these people. She had everything done. Who got what of her stuff? And it was just, she's 25 and she wanted to make everything easy on us. And as far as that goes, it was perfect because we knew she was ready and not afraid. She was very spiritual, very religious. She met with the priest and was going to do her funeral. He said during the mass that she told him she was not angry at God and that he gave her these experiences so she could help other people. I'm like, holy shit, girl. What the hell? How are you so wise? How are you so connected in that way? It was just so lovely. This was 2009, so it's been a while. I still miss her every day, but we talk about how funny she was and the silly things we all did as a family. I'm still processing how mad I am that she didn't meet my husband because he and I got together in September of the year that she died. Missed her by a couple months. And that pisses me off. I tell all the stories and he feels like he knows her. I think she would be here all the time because we have this jetted tub and she'd like to take hot baths. My memory of her death is actually kind of positive in a strange way. I spent a month out of work to process what was going on and realize my new reality. And there's all kinds of other stuff going on at the same time. I guess this counts too. I had an unplanned pregnancy that I elected to terminate a couple of weeks before my sister died. There was a lot of life-altering experiences happening in a very short amount of time. This experience actually brought my family closer. Shortly after my sister died, I went back to work. The boyfriend that my mom hated broke up, whom I lived with. Okay, so let's just piece this out. I lived with him. He broke up with me by changing his relationship status on Facebook because that's what adults do. I didn't know. Other people knew before I knew because I wasn't checking Facebook in 2009 very regularly. I was driving to work and I called him. I'm like, what the fuck is this? What is this? He's like, you left me to grieve the loss of our child alone. I'm like, okay, let's walk that back a little bit. That was a decision you and I made together. And my freaking sister just died. And you have a child elsewhere that you have no relationship with. I hung up with him. I called my mother and just lost it. I'm like, this is what happened. This was when I finally told her, this is April. All this stuff was January, February, and this is April. I finally told her about the pregnancy and the abortion, and she lost her mind. She's like, he made you do that. He made you go alone. He didn't go with you, did he? I'm like, no, he went with me. But she was just so angry. Not once did she say, I told you so. Even now, not once. Came in like a white knight on a horse, ready to do whatever she had to do to get me out of there. And I moved back in with my parents. I moved into my sister's room and I couldn't even tell you how we got closer. I think it was this sudden ability to recognize the bad relationship that I was in. And then I could finally acknowledge it and tell my mother everything. Never did she say, I told you so, or you're an idiot, or why did you even do this? Nothing. It was just, I'm going to kill him. And I'm like, please don't do that, Mom. I don't need you.
Like a Jersey mom.
Yeah, definitely a Jersey mom with a Eastern European father who actually did kill people in a war. So there was a lot of sassiness on her side of the family. She just brought me back in, and that was that. Now my mom and I are so close. We talk about everything. I kind of said to wherever my sister is, how did you know this was going to happen? How did you know we were going to be okay? And we did all this fundraising for her, and her foundation talks about her silliness, her love for people, her constant concern for others. People who never knew her loved her. That's how you achieve immortality, I think. And I miss her. I talk to her all the time. She doesn't answer, but I know what she would say. She always would say, whenever I would complain about someone's behavior, she would always say to me, you don't know what their life is like. You don't know what kind of day they're having. You need to give people some grace. I say that to myself all the time. When I start talking about like, oh my God, she's such a bitch. It's like, hang on. I don't know what's going on in that person's life right now. Why would I? I can be a bitch too. And that's usually because I've got something going on. I end up teaching my students. So I teach college freshmen, and I talk to them about that fallacy. There's actually a name for it. The fundamental attribution error. You attribute character based on behavior, even though you know for yourself that your character is not proof of, like, it doesn't have anything to do with your behavior. It has to do with the situation. There's a chapter in a book that talks all about how we all do it. Like calling, like someone cuts you off when you're driving and you call them an asshole. It's like, they're probably not an asshole. They probably have to pee, because you've cut people off when you need to get home because you have to pee. So now I'm just like, okay, where they're going is more important than where I'm going, but I'm just going to let them go.
It's a great way to view that type of situation. I've tried to do that myself.
It's not easy.
Not easy, especially when you're having a bad day too. So part of you's like, yo, fuck you. My day sucks too. So
People off, but maybe I am cutting people off and I'm just not even paying attention because my brain's somewhere else. As far as the grieving process goes, I still have moments when I get pissed off, and I let myself get pissed off, and then it's over. There's a lot of things that my mother and I are going through in separate ways. We really wish she was here to give us some advice, but also we are really glad she wasn't here during COVID, because she would have lost her mind. The house would have been covered in plastic. It's just like, that's just who she was. But I haven't, and I use a wheelchair now. I used to be a competitive Irish step dancer, and now I'm using a wheelchair. My mother was in kidney failure and now has a kidney transplant. And the two of us are just trying to keep each other going. I guess that's also what my sister wanted too, for us to keep each other going. It took this tragedy for me to grow up a little, forgive whatever I needed to forgive. I think I'm a better person now than I was. At least I hope I am. I might not. But when I look at Facebook memories, I'm like, yeah, that was kind of a bitchy thing to say. I don't see that anymore. The internet is forever. So there's a record of all of your not kind comments.
Oh, I sometimes cringe when I look back at just how judgmental I was, and how I now feel much more compassion for other humans, that even if we don't agree, I know that we all just come from our own experiences, and our pain and our suffering really shapes how we view the world. And also, we need all kinds of people in the world. We need all kinds of different beliefs. Like, that's just part of what makes life interesting. If we all thought the same about everything, I would be really bored.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I try to remind myself that even when I'm really disagreeing with somebody, that there's things that I can always learn, because I love to learn new things. And there would be nothing to learn if we all thought the same thing. So I try, but there's definitely times when I look back at, especially going back to MySpace days, like way back, exactly like those posts, I'm like, oh, Jill. But that's part of life, is growing and learning. And to me, when I think of your sister dying so young, there's always part of me that thinks like, well, what would she have been able to do today if she would have still been here? But also, would she have been the same person that she was if she didn't have cystic fibrosis?
No, she wouldn't. She knew that in her view, God gave me this challenge so that I can help other people, so that I can understand other people, so that I can learn how to see the world in a different way than if I weren't sick. When she was a kid, she was kind of mean. For whatever reason, I was never popular or cool, but she was. And that kind of pissed me off. I'm like, why is she all cool and cute and everything? And I'm awkward. And well, because you're awkward and that's okay. But man, at one point, she was in 5th grade. I had to do a course of really high steroids. She had the moon face. It was really chunky and broken out. The elementary school that we went to was pretty small. There was only maybe 90 kids in the 5th grade. The whole 5th grade class had a meeting and said, she's coming back. She had to take some medicine that's going to make her look puffy. So don't be assholes about it. And everyone was cool except for this one girl. And I was in the middle school. I was in 7th grade and I was 5'8" and 50 pounds. And I'm like, I'm going to kill her. Where does she live? I'm going to kill her. My sister's like, don't kill her, please. I'm like, I'm going to get on my bike and I'm going to ride to her house and we're going to have a chat. You see, it's like, that's family, right? I can make fun of her and give her a hard time, but watch out if you give her a hard time because I'm coming at you hard. I was just livid. I wished I was still in the same school because there would have been some action on the playground kind of thing.
Sounds like Jersey again.
Yeah, we don't screw around. We also don't pump around.
We do live up to our stereotype a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of stereotypes that are based on truth.
But I love New Jersey and I love Jersey girls. I was always very grateful. As I moved around the country, I was grateful that I came from Jersey because I honestly wasn't afraid of anything. I was kind of like, all right, what are you going to do to me that hasn't already been done? It will be fine. And I kind of moved through my life that way. Yeah, there's definitely a specific attitude that comes out of here that I like. But also just New Jersey is just kind of a cool spot. We're very close to 3 major metropolitan areas. We have the ocean. We have the best beaches. Sorry. Yes, we do.
We're the best beaches.
But no, I agree. I actually love New Jersey. I used to get really annoyed when people would talk trash about Jersey. And especially, when I would move around and people would be like, why is it called the Garden State? I'm like, you've obviously never seen South Jersey. We have lots of farmland, lots and lots of it. But then Nail, I'm also like, that's fine. You could not like our state and you could stay out of it. You could leave the beaches to us. I'm fine with that. Yeah. Bye. Where I live now, I'm in Richland, and there was one year where we were renamed Mojito because we were like the mint capital of the world. We grow a lot of mint, blueberries, cranberries, and tomatoes, and y'all can go elsewhere. And yeah, anytime you do any ocean spray, those are ours. And dandelions, where we grow edible dandelions, right? Vineland is like the dandelion capital of the world. Yep. And there's a winery down the road that makes dandelion wine. It tastes like grass, but in a good way, like drinking a salad or something. It's very strange. But when they open their dandelion wine, they always do a flight tasting of different vintages and how different they are based on just the aging and also what was happening that season and how the dandelions grew and everything. It's fascinating to do something like that. And I try to do it as often as possible. Yeah. North Jersey is not Jersey. That's something separate. That's like New York suburb. But I would agree with that. Yeah. So anyone who's listening, come at me. See what happens. Nothing's going to happen. I'll roll over your feet in my wheelchair. How's that? Oh, well, I really appreciate you sharing that story with us. That was a beautiful story. I really appreciate that your sister was so willing to face reality and prepare for it and prepare the people around her for it. And that's not easy to do, but it definitely is doable for all of us, no matter whether we have a terminal illness or we're going along life healthy, say healthy in quotes, because we don't know if there's something going on inside of us. We could all die at any point, and the more that we prepare ourselves and prepare for the after effects, the better it's going to be for everyone around us. They're not going to have to scramble and deal with a bunch of stuff. They can deal with their own grief and process their own emotions, not worry about, do you want to be buried or cremated?
Right. And then the family fights about it. And it's just like, you know what? No, don't. But yeah, death is one of the few experiences that we will all have.
Correct.
So
If you were created, you will die at some point. And it doesn't matter if that's when you're in the womb or whether you're 99 years old.
one shot, do the stuff, be happy, but be okay with not being happy. There's also that whole toxic positivity thing. It's like, no, it's okay. Your life is allowed to suck, but what are you going to do about it?
Yes, that's the thing. What are you going to do about it? We're all going to have experiences in life that are not going to be great, but what are you going to do? Are you going to sit around and think about it and stress about it and just push it off onto everybody else around you? Or are you going to take it and learn from it? Maybe even do some good in the world from your negative experiences, like it sounds like your sister did. Actually,
Yeah.
what is the name of her foundation?
Oh, it's the Casey Coyle Memorial Fund. We're no longer fundraising for it, but there is still money in the account to do the things. But the person who is doing a lot of the managing has moved to a different hospital. So likely we will just spend the money and then go from there.
Okay.
Because my family just we all got a little sick. We paused. But it's still, you can still donate to it through the Children's Hospital Philadelphia Foundation. It's still listed there if you wanted to. I'm also going to plug my blog.
Please. Yeah. Tell us about your blog.
proffonseca.com. I've been teaching at the college level for a while, and I just kind of gave myself that title. I blog a lot about accessibility and disability in higher ed and that kind of stuff. I'm trying to ramp it back up. So this might be the motivator to do that. Read my book.
I'll put a link in the show notes. People
Perfect.
can read it. I think that's a great topic that people don't often think about. When you're able-bodied, we don't think about these things. So it's important that we all start thinking about it, at least a little bit. Give it some consideration that not everybody can easily walk up the steps and walk in a door and get to where they need to be.
Yep. It's a good time. I do make a lot of jokes about it. I do have some dark humor. I don't know if you've noticed, but accessibility, higher education, just general MSing, it's a good time.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for being with us today. I appreciate the conversation, and I appreciate getting to know that story a little bit because I didn't know about your sister. That happened before we met. So it's nice to know a little bit about it. I do appreciate you sharing. Thank you for being here with us.
And thank you for the opportunity, the invitation.
Very welcome. Again, I'll put the link in the show notes to the blog and to the foundation if anybody is interested.
Awesome. Thank you.